Hey, I'm Mike, and today on my story Animated, I'm sharing the wild tale of how I hid my girlfriend in my closet for 5 years. It wasn't the plan, but things spiraled out of control fast, and I just couldn't keep up. Ready to dive into my story? It all kicks off on my first day at college. I was on edge, eager to see Natalie. She's my girlfriend, and she'd been Mia all summer. Tried reaching out, but no luck. Panic started creeping in as I waited, realizing she wasn't showing. That's when I bumped into Quinn. In the midst of my mini meltdown, she swooped in, offering a shoulder to lean on. We clicked instantly. I spilled about Natalie, and Quinn couldn't believe what a jerk she thought Charles was. She was livid on my behalf, urging me not to take it lying down. No one should mess with you like that, she insisted. Initially, I was just sad, but Quinn lit a fire under me. Sad turned to anger, and anger turned into a thirst for payback. I was seething. How could he treat me like this? Disappearing and leaving me hanging like I didn't matter. Then, out of nowhere, Charles waltzed onto campus, dropping a surprise on me. Quinn was by my side, thank goodness, because I was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Charles went in for a hug, but I was frozen. What was I supposed to do? He mumbled something about being late for class and dashed off. I was left standing there, shell-shocked. Quinn wasted no time bolstering me up, insisting I stay strong. According to her, Charles wasn't worth my time. I wasn't entirely convinced, but with Quinn in my ear, I started to believe it more and more. Then she laid out her revenge scheme. Her idea: invite him over that night, have her hide in my bedroom, and when the moment's right, help me trap him in my closet. At first, I hesitated, but my hatred clouded my judgment, and I caved. So, when Charles showed up at the end of the day, I mustered up the nerve to invite him over. He wrapped me in another hug, feeding me lines about how much he missed me all summer. Quinn had warned me about his lies, though, so I brushed it off. Miss me? Huh. So much you could barely send a text all summer. I thought, what a load of bull. We got back to my place, and before I could even unlock the door, he was laying one on me. But I wasn't falling for his charm. Thanks to Quinn's pep talks, I was tougher now. I cranked up the music and started dancing, setting the mood. Then, I took a rope and tied his hands behind his back. He chuckled, clueless about what was coming, blindfolded him with a piece of cloth, and signaled for Quinn to emerge. "Who's Quinn?" he blurted out, panicked. We maneuvered him into a chair in my closet. "What's happening, Natalie?" he demanded. "You vanished from my life for 3 months. Now, for the next 3 months, my life is all you're going to see," I shot back. Quinn chuckled as I slammed the closet door shut, satisfaction coursing through me. Revenge served cold. But things took a turn for the worse. Barely a minute after I locked him in, the doorbell rang. Panicked, I hushed Charles and stuffed a sock in his mouth before closing the closet door and cranking up the music. Opening the front door, I found some classmates on the other side. They heard the music and barged in with beers, ready to party. We started dancing, trying to keep up appearances. Meanwhile, Charles was making a racket in the closet, and I was freaking out. I made up some excuse about my dog being spooked and suggested we take the party outside. As the night wore on, my nerves were shot. Hours later, I spotted someone fleeing in the distance, hands still tied. Quinn rushed over, breathless, to tell me Charles had bolted. I apologized to my classmates, then dashed out with Quinn in tow. We called out his name, and he darted into an alley. I called again, and he stumbled, falling into a pile of trash. I hurried over, seeing he'd been cut by broken glass. Despite his struggles, I hoisted him up, warning him about infection if he didn't let me patch him up. Back at my place, I settled him back into the closet chair and blindfolded him once more. While I tended to his wounds, Quinn paced, fuming. "You know, he's the worst kind of liar," she seethed. "Says he's having a blast, then tries to run at the first chance." Her words stung, but she wasn't wrong. As Charles spun his tales of summer retreats and communication mishaps, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been played. "Yeah, right? No Wi-Fi for 3 months. Give me a break." Guy was spinning more yarns than a grandma knitting a sweater. And then, he had the nerve to insinuate it was my fault. Total jerk move. Quinn saw through him from the get-go. She was the only one I could trust. Fed up with his lies, I shut him up with a sock in the mouth. The next day, I dragged myself to college, but I couldn't focus. Quinn warned me it was a bad idea leaving Charles alone. Figured he'd try another escape. Rushed back home, relieved to find him still locked in the closet. But Quinn was right. Leaving the house was a mistake. I holed up at home for days, barely eating, until I had to brave the store. Quinn kept saying it was risky, but I had no choice. Quick in, quick out. At the store, I spotted a cop and nearly had a heart attack. Quinn said she'd heard chatter on the radio about a suspicious woman matching my description. Sweat beading? I grabbed what I needed, practically tossed cash at the cashier, and bolted. Cops started tailing us, so we booked it. When they kept on our tail, Quinn said going home was out of the question. Couldn't risk them finding Charles. She pointed to the alley where he'd fallen before, and we hid. Cops searched, then left. Letting out a sigh, we crept back home. Quinn said things were getting dicey, that we couldn't risk leaving anymore. Charles was fading fast with the scraps I was feeding him. Begging for mercy now, not forgiveness. Well, I begged for mercy for 3 months, and you never threw me a bone. Now deal with it, mutt. I spat out the insult, earning a hearty laugh from Quinn. She agreed, saying it was a spot-on description. Charles was a dog, and that's how he should be treated. I started ordering food online since the thought of stepping out terrified me. Along with my own meals, I tossed in some dog food for Charles, who gobbled it up without complaint. By the end of the initial 3-month stretch, I felt a pang of guilt. It seemed only fair to let him go. But Quinn talked me out of it, warning he'd run to the cops, and I'd be the one behind bars. Charles swore he'd keep quiet, but after all his lies, how could I trust him? He needed to pay, so I kept him locked away for a few more months, and then a few more, until those months turned into years. I settled into my new routine, never needing to leave the safety of my home thanks to online orders. And Quinn, she was the ultimate wingman, sticking by my side through it all. Hold on a sec, that's not how it went down. Hey, I'm Charles, and I'm here to set the record straight. My Story Animated reached out for my side of the story, and here it is. Let's clear some things up. Yeah, I was away all summer, but Natalie knew about it. We've been together for 3 years, and these summer retreats have been part of the deal. Last one before college, I wanted to spend it with family. Sure, I miss Natalie like crazy during my travels, but seeing her again, best feeling in the world. I had a feeling something was off when we met up at college, but when Natalie invited me over, I figured it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Arriving in the afternoon, I wasted no time in greeting her with a kiss. I missed her like crazy. She started dancing, and for a moment, it felt like old times. I played along when she tied me up, but the moment she blindfolded me and shoved me in the closet, that feeling of unease returned. I overheard her chatting with someone named Quinn, but I figured she was on the phone. Then she dropped the bomb about me disappearing for 3 months, and now being confined for the same time. I was scared. I yelled, hoping she'd realize it was all a joke gone too far. But when knocking echoed at the door, I panicked, making as much noise as possible. Unfortunately, the music drowned me out, leaving me trapped in silence. After what felt like an eternity, I heard the sounds of everyone leaving, and my survival instincts kicked into high gear. It was now or never. I had to break free. Despite my bound hands, I scraped my face against the wall until I could peel off the blindfold. Surveying the situation, I noticed Natalie was nowhere in sight, so I took a leap of faith and jumped out the window. With my hands still tied, it was a struggle, but fueled by adrenaline, I managed to hit the ground running. 3 blocks away, Natalie's voice called out my name, sending shivers down my spine. Unsure of what to do, I ducked into an alley, hoping to evade her, but she spotted me and gave chase. Desperation kicked in, and I stumbled over a garbage bag, a shard of glass piercing my leg in the process. Screaming in pain, I tried to fend her off, but Natalie remained calm, her eyes filled with fury. "Why are you doing this?" I pleaded, but she simply insisted that if I didn't let her help, no one else would. The agony forced me to relent, and she guided me back to her place, all the while talking to someone I couldn't see. Terrified, I assumed she was on the phone with one of those Bluetooth earpieces. This wasn't the girl I once loved. My mind raced, realizing I needed a plan to escape. So when we returned to her apartment and she began tending to my wounds, I played my hand, expressing gratitude and professing my love in hopes of triggering memories of our perfect relationship. She hesitated, but said nothing, "What are you gonna do to me?" I finally asked, adding, "You don't have to keep me prisoner. I want to be with you." Her tear-filled gaze met mine, but she shut the closet door and resumed her conversation with this mysterious Quinn. Unsure of my next move and too injured to attempt another escape, I decided to bide my time, praying she'd come to her senses and set me free. But she didn't. The next day, I heard stirring noises outside the closet door. I mustered up the strength to scream, but my voice came out weak and feeble. Exhaustion gnawed at me. I hadn't slept a wink, and the pain from my legs radiated through my body. I was utterly trapped. Hours later, she returned, opening the closet door to find me still there. Where could I even go? She tossed some food onto the floor and shut the door, leaving me to fend for myself. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, but with my hands bound, I had no choice but to eat like an animal off the ground. It was degrading, kneeling there in agony as I forced myself to swallow. As days turned into weeks, I noticed Natalie rarely left the house anymore. Words like dangerous and stay home floated through the air as she talked to this mysterious Quinn, whom I'd never laid eyes on. Each time she fed me, I strained to catch a glimpse of Quinn, but she remained elusive. Months dragged on, and with each visit from Natalie, her apartment grew messier, dirtier, as did she. I pitied her. She seemed on the brink of collapse, and it stung that she blamed me for her woes. Initially, she fed me pet food, barely enough to sustain me. It wasn't much, but at least it wasn't lethal. As my strength dwindled, thoughts of escape faded into the background. I resigned myself to this dismal existence, daydreaming of slipping into eternal slumber. But fate had other plans. Time blurred after the first year, but Natalie kept me captive for what felt like an eternity. The silver lining, if you could call it that, was when Natalie finally noticed my weakened state. She stopped locking me in the closet. I found myself with newfound freedom to roam the house, but the once cozy place grew more uninhabitable by the day. Dirt coated every surface. Yet Natalie seemed oblivious to the decay surrounding us. She neglected herself too, and I had to tiptoe around cockroaches and flies just to make it to the bathroom. Rotten food and garbage cluttering the path. As Natalie spiraled deeper into madness, I caught more snippets of her conversations with this enigmatic Quinn. At first, it was hushed whispers, but gradually, she spoke louder, as if Quinn were right there in the room with us. I scrutinized Natalie's ears, expecting to find a Bluetooth device, but found nothing. Once, I even stumbled upon her phone buried beneath a heap of trash. Who on earth was she talking to? It was clear Natalie had lost her grip on reality, and I was too feeble to intervene. My own phone had vanished long ago, and Natalie had sealed us off from the outside world, rolling down the blinds. I lacked the strength to raise them or raise my voice in protest. Now it was up to me to anchor Natalie back to reality, but I had no clue where to start. I racked my brain, recalling the joyful moments we shared, the beach trips, camping adventures, late-night study sessions. We were an unbeatable team. Somewhere along the line, Natalie had veered off course, and I needed to guide her back to the light. So, with a calm demeanor, I recounted our cherished memories, hoping to reignite the spark buried beneath her despair. At first, she seemed resistant, but with each reminiscence, I glimpsed a glimmer of recognition in her eyes. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope yet for us both. After weeks of reminiscing, Natalie gradually opened up, sharing more memories and shedding tears as she battled the voices tormenting her mind. Witnessing her struggle, I knew I had to confront the root of her anguish. I urged her to leave Quinn out of our shared memories. It was just us, after all. Meeting my gaze with intense sorrow, she eventually relented, and as she looked into the mirror, reality hit her like a ton of bricks. She crumpled to the floor, overwhelmed by the sight of our surroundings. In that moment of vulnerability, I implored her to recognize the danger we were in and call the police. Locking eyes with her reflection, I reassured her that Quinn wasn't real. She existed only in her mind. Tears flowed freely as she embraced me, begging for forgiveness. With newfound clarity, Natalie rolled up the blinds and summoned help from a passerby. Relief flooded over me as the police arrived, and Natalie confessed to her actions. They took her into custody while I was whisked away to the hospital. In the aftermath, I learned that Natalie was receiving the help she needed. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to harbor any resentment toward her. I'd witnessed firsthand the destructive power of bitterness, and I refused to let it poison my heart.